All right, so if you had to create the optimal athlete, think about Rocky. What was the guy? What was the big Russian? The Soviet.
Drago.
So if you wanted to create Ivan Drago, what would you start? Would you start with his like massive biceps? How do you create? How would you start and create the perfect human specimen?
I mean, obviously, it's going to be a nose that's that wide. It's going to be
You're
huge.
going to start with a nose, right?
Yes.
You're going to start with a nose that works
Absolutely.
optimally,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
Because everything else, it comes back to that. So if somebody's nose, if you're gonna create that superhuman or the superhuman you want to be, give them functioning tools, give them an airway that works, give them you want to open up that intake valve so they can crush it.
Yeah.
Bottom line. On the flip side, you want to create the weakest, meekest, nobody of an athlete. What do you do for that? How are you going to start to?
Well, you just block their nose.
block their nose out.
Yeah.
Like literally, you could take Superman, plug his nose. Well, he's not human, is he? I don't know what he is. He's not human, but if he were human, assuming he was human, plug his nose, and what you're going to see is over time that superhuman, Ivan Drago beast is going to turn into a little nothing. It's going to melt away.
It's going to be his kryptonite.
Yeah, because at the core of being an athlete is you got to be able to breathe properly. You have to.
Right.
That's why I think in this day and age, there's a lot more talk about breathing and proper breathing, and actually nowadays there's yoga and meditation and all these things that sort of. What's the core concept there? Like what do they always talk about? 100% of the time they talk about breathe through your nose, breathe through your nose. What if you're the poor dude who wants to be Ivan Drago, but you're some, kind of lesser man or woman, and your nose doesn't work, and somebody tells you, breathe through your nose, and you say, and you try it, and you try to breathe through your nose, and it doesn't work, and then you open your mouth, and then you feel like a fool, but your nose didn't work, and nobody ever told you that.
Except that's more commonplace, because I feel like most patients will say, hey, I can't breathe through my nose, or they may go to yoga or something else, but that's probably more common than it isn't.
And I hear it on the back end. Like we tend to hear it when we fix somebody's nose, and they say, "God, my whole life, this whole time, where when I was running and my coach was yelling at me to shut my mouth, and I tried and I couldn't do it. The whole time, my nose wasn't working."
Right.
And they didn't know about it until the back end, which is a shame. To me, it's a win to get them working properly, and it's a loss that they've gone through their whole life, not being able to breathe properly. Especially if you're an athlete. I mean, I think it's certainly important for everybody, but if somebody's really, if somebody is really, putting in the time and effort to do their best and be their best, and that's being sabotaged by a situation that they didn't know existed or don't know exists. That's a shame.
Right. And I would say, especially for athletes that are doing more longer aerobic type sport, right? So like runners, swimmers, and there's other, like football, maybe a play lasts 30 seconds and somebody's pushing as hard as they can for an immediate amount of time.
Right.
Like certainly if you opened your mouth, you could ram more air in. But for the more endurance athlete type person, like breathing through your nose is essential.
Yeah.
And you think about like cycling, and the amount of effort that people go to, like Tour de France, and all the drugging and transfusing their own blood. It's all trying to get more oxygen in your system, trying to get a competitive edge. And think about like if you just get your nose working, that might give you a little bit of a bump there.
Big time. Honestly, I hadn't really thought about it but like, yes, all the doping, the steroids, the this, the that, the corked bat, all these things that people, it's always trying to get an edge, always looking for that. Like, what's that little thing that I can do that's going to, sort of put me above the competition? And yet they're missing the things that's sitting right in front of their face, literally, like in the middle of their face, in the middle of their head. It's a sort of a neon sign to the world that I'm not at my best. It's the thing that it's like you're thinking about all these sort of nuanced things where the most obvious things aren't. There's no time and attention put into it, unfortunately. When it's a massive, it's either working properly, or it's not working properly, and if it's anything less than working properly, it's going to be a handicap. It's going to be something that's going to drag you down. It's going to be something that you ought to pay attention to and do something about, because the lack of doing something is hurting you for anybody, but especially an athlete.
Yeah.
And I think again, back to that, where do you start? Where does anything start athletic? It starts with your breathing. I mean, I can't think of a sport where that's not crucial. It does. I mean, endurance athletes, where they're breathing, their breathing is core to what they do for an extended time period. It's sort of most apt. But even if you're, Usain Bolt, or an athlete that's sprinting, why wouldn't you want to? Why wouldn't you?
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to have a nose that's working optimally? Why wouldn't you want that? And again, I mean, why though? I mean, what's the difference between the nose and the mouth breathing, as far from an athlete standpoint?
Again, it's getting in the best amount and best quality of air into your lungs. I mean, it's your primary airway. It's the beginning of your airway. And
it conditions that air.
Yes.
So the whole point of your nose, and the reason everybody says breathe through your nose, is that there's a reason you have a nose. It's just to condition, moisten, warm in that air, so that by the time it gets your lungs are ready to go. It's
your HEPA.
conditioned.
It's like your filter.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful concept when it works. And basically, and again, there comes a point, if somebody's truly going all out, where eventually you're going to kind of pass the threshold of what you can actually breathe in through your nose, you're going to drop your mouth open. If you're going to sprint, then eventually, if you're pushing it to that extent, okay, mouth comes open. But but you should delay that until the last possible time where that's needed.
Correct.
Because all those breaths, every breath, if you have a breath through the nose versus a breath through your mouth, every breath that you can get in through your nose is sort of powerful, is going to optimize your athletic performance. Every breath that's coming in through your mouth is weakening, and it's going to detract from that. And eventually, you're going to get to a point, if you're sprinting, certainly, where okay, I got to drop my mouth open, but you shouldn't do that until you have to do that. And unfortunately, people have to do that too quickly because their noses don't work.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, again, talking about competitive edge here in sports and people trying to get like a leg up, and there's other ways of doing it that are less effective, doping and all these other things that we're talking about. But what if we can just get the nose working and give people a bump?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's really important. Breathing properly means breathing through your nose. Do not diminish the impact of that, and do not diminish, or it's not something to be buried or frustrated with. It's something to be taken care of. Again, it's really a matter of whether you want something working for you or against you, and for you is crucial. So.